Hey guys, you've joined us live at Moneycontrol. I'm Manisha Gupta, and in focus today is the wheat prices, where overnight we saw the wheat prices gain up by nearly 3% in the international markets. We do understand that the stocks with US are lesser and the exports from that country could be much lower this time around. For the Indian markets as well, the prices have been rising ahead of festivals and concerns about availability. There is usually strong demand during winters, and we do understand that it is the period between November to January that you see the wheat price or wheat demand at much on the higher side there. Also, the kind of sales that we have seen come in from the Food Corporation of India haven't really exactly met the kind of demand that the bulk buyers are looking at this point in time. To get all of those things in perspective, we are now joined by Mr. Ajay Goyal. He's the owner at Shivaji Roller Flour Mills. Ajay, hi, thank you so much for joining us. First of all, the Indian prices itself, and it has been a volatile year to begin with, and there have been concerns about availability. But with the Food Corporation of India now selling wheat via OMSS, has that improved the availability at all?
Yeah, so of course, it is the FCI sale which has kept the markets in leash all along, and the early sale that the government started off. Normally, the government starts its sale somewhere around the month of October or November, but this year you will notice that it started it quite early, around June, July. That is primarily because this has been an unusual year wherein there are doubts on the government numbers about the crop production this year, and definitely there is a gap between what the government is estimating and the reality. So the government sales have kept the market in leash, and the government's promise that it shall continue to keep the sales up to keep the markets in control. But now we are reaching a tipping point wherein maybe the demand far exceeds what the government is actually releasing in the markets.
So what has been sold until now? What is the target, and what is that the street wants?
So the government has set aside 5 million tons for the OMSS scheme, whereas it can actually comfortably keep aside even up to 8 million tons for the scheme. And the government and the trade and industry is basically looking that the government should, in the next coming 3-4 months, at least make it 300 to 500 tons the allocation per mill, which they do on a per pan-India basis. So instead of about 2 lakh tons, the industry is expecting at least 5 to 6 lakh tons per tender henceforth, which will keep the supply side well assured.
Ajay, the high price for wheat for this year that we've seen is around 32 or 33, correct me there please. And what is the prices right now? And if we continue to see this kind of open market sales, where do you see prices heading?
So there is a big scare in the market, and the trade, and nobody is really interested in higher prices because the government is keeping its watchful eye on the price of wheat. But definitely that is also because the government has been selling week after week very small and marginal quantities. But if there is no real support from the government in terms of increased allocation, you could see, last year's high was 32, 33. So this year, I don't think it will shy away from touching 30 at least if the government doesn't release sufficient quantities.
And I remember, Ajay, we talking earlier that imports perhaps could have been opened and that would have helped the Indian market. That hasn't happened. But for the international markets as well, it's not a very sweet spot because we are looking at weak weather for the Ukraine crop. Otherwise as well, there are conversations now about not so much of a surplus, and the Indian inventory is at low, and exports expected to be at decades low is what we are dealing with.
Yeah, so the national, I think, deficit would not be more than 1 million or 2, and it's a very fine line, thin line that we are walking on. And if the government wishes and draws out of its existing stocks and releases a bit more, we should be able to tide over the situation this year. And there are political reasons for not allowing imports because we might be there are upcoming elections, and there are other factors which are keeping the import duty reduction at bay. But I guess if the government really just enhances its allocation a bit more and goes all out into releasing the wheat in the markets will remain stable. I hope so.
A final word on the global markets then. What's your sense onto that one? Because we've seen prices react more so in global markets.
Yeah, so weather and political uncertainty always is playing on the wheat markets. And I think what we saw last year initially when the Ukraine war just started in, so that was almost the peak. After that, it is like every quarter there is some part of the globe harvesting wheat, and there are concerns or surpluses that are being generated. So we should be in the range-bound situation moving forward.
Fair point that. Ajay, thank you so much as always for joining us. So, well, the wheat price is currently at around 26 to 27 rupees a kg. But if the government sales do not increase, then 30 rupees a kg is not too far away, especially in the festival season.